Hey everyone, welcome back to a new video. My name's Jason, thanks for checking out the channel. Today we're looking at a brand new 12-volt compressor fridge. Now this is made by Setpower. I have reviewed two Setpower fridges in the past. They've been very reliable. I use them all the time. So I'm pretty excited to check out this one. Now this is the biggest one that they've offered so far. This is a 60-quart model. This is the RV60 Dual Pro Edition. So you'll notice that this actually comes with the wheels and this extendable handle with these little kickstands here. Now there's one other feature in this fridge that sets it apart from most other competition in the market, and that's because this fridge has a removable divider. So if you look inside, you'll see there are two individual compartments, but you can actually remove that divider out and then turn this into a single zone fridge. So say you want to have 60 quarts of just a fridge, that's great, take out the divider. If you want to have a fridge space and a freezer space, put the divider in and then you have individual control over both sections. So very cool that this fridge has the removable divider. Now, even though this is such a large fridge packed with a ton of features, the price isn't that bad. You can pick this up on Setpower's website for $599, but don't forget, I have a 12% discount code that's valid for any Setpower fridge, and that brings the price down to $527. Now with that price, you do get a 3-year warranty on the compressor inside and 1-year warranty on all the other parts. And in the rest of the video today, we're going to first jump into the inside of the fridge, show you how everything works in there. We'll talk about the control panel and all the features on the outside. And then I have some extensive power consumption testing that I've done both on single mode and dual mode at 2 different temperatures, over 100 hours of testing on this fridge. Hopefully you guys are excited. Let's just jump right into it. Now before jumping inside the fridge, let's talk about the lid and latching system. You can see how big the latch is here. It's really easy to open up and it kind of auto closes. So it's always nice to have a nice latch. Now you can also see the thickness of this lid. It is insulated, which is really good. You can see the insulation plug here. Now this does have a foam gasket that goes around the entire inside, so it should have a really good seal. Now one benefit to this lid is it's reversible. You can actually take this off, flip it around and put it on this side, and it actually changes the latch from each side and you can open it from either way, which is really cool on a budget fridge like this. Okay, so now we're looking at the inside of the fridge. You have your large zone on this side and your small zone. This is usually the fridge and this is the freezer. Now the freezer does come with this removable basket, so let's go ahead and take that out. Now this is your divider, so it's nice that you have an LED light that shines on both sides. Now that LED light is activated with a magnet on the lid, so as you open it up, you can see it turns on and off. So if you want to remove this, you just pull it all the way out. And now you can see it's one large zone. So you can run this as a freezer or a fridge, but it disables one of the thermostats, so there's only one thermostat active. Now you can see down here at the bottom, you have 2 temperature sensors. They are exposed, so it actually leads to pretty good accuracy on the temperature inside the fridge. And at the very bottom, you have a included drain plug. So if you happen to have a spill, you can just rinse it out and then wipe it down. Now a quick demo of what can fit in the fridge. I do have a milk jug up on the shelf and 2 water bottles at the bottom. The lid closes just fine. And then looking at the freezer side, I was able to fit a ½ gallon of ice cream down at the bottom. So you should be able to stack quite a bit in there. Okay, so looking at some basic measurements, it's about 19 inches wide. It's around 12 3/4 inches long. It's around 17.5 inches deep on the deep side and around 10 1/4 inches deep on the shelf. Now with the divider installed, you have about 1 foot of spacing on this side and about 5 3/4 inches on this side. Now I want to go ahead and show you guys the control panel, so let me plug in the fridge. Now when you first get power, it will turn on and then it will turn off. That's completely normal. Now when you want to turn on the fridge to actually use it, you push the power button. Then it'll display the temperature in each zone. So this side here is the freezer and this side with the shelf is the fridge. Now to adjust the temperature, you just push up and down. So we can set the freezer to 12 degrees Fahrenheit and then we can adjust this side. I like to have it around 34 degrees for the fridge. Now once this stops flashing, you can adjust eco mode or max mode on the compressor by pushing the settings button. Now there are a few other settings that you can change, but it has to be in standby mode, which means it's plugged in but not powered on. To get into that standby mode, you actually just press these plus and minus buttons at the same time for 3 seconds. And now we're in the battery protection settings. So you can push this button, you can see it's set to low. You can go to medium or high. I like to have this set to low. And then to change it to Celsius or Fahrenheit, you push the power button and then you also just push down or up. And I'm going to leave this on Fahrenheit. Once it stops flashing, that means it's saved. Now all this information is in the owner's manual if you want to refer back to it. But one other important thing that I want to talk about is the error codes that you'll see, at least the most important one, which is the E1 error code, which means low input voltage error. Now that's why I mentioned I like having the battery protection setting to low, because some stock vehicles have some really junky wires in them, so you'll get a lot of voltage drop, which causes the fridge to think that the battery voltage is too low, and then it actually cuts off the compressor, so you'll get that E1 error code. So the best way to fix that is by setting this to the low battery protection, and then just making sure your battery is fully charged up. Now, if you are planning to run your 12-volt compressor fridge off a power station or a standalone lithium iron phosphate battery, you usually don't have to worry too much about voltage drop, so you shouldn't have to adjust those settings. Now, I always recommend to have a power station with a regulated DC output and at least 500 watt hours of capacity to give you a decent runtime on the fridge. Well, now that we've talked about the inside of the fridge and the control panel, just briefly want to talk about some of the features on the outside. Now, the Pro model comes with this extending handle, which is really nice. It has these two locks. Let's see if I can get it. You just push these and then it opens up, and then you can extend that out, and it makes it really easy to move around because of the wheels and the leverage you get with this handle. Now, to get it to go back in, you just push each one, and then it will go and lock back in place. Now, you do have the ability to remove this handle and install a secondary handle just like the other side, which I'll show you here in a second. Okay, so on the other side of the fridge, you have the handle here. Now, this is a spring-loaded handle, so when the fridge is full, you're carrying it. It gives you plenty of room for your hand, but then when you're not using it, it actually tucks itself away and takes up less space. Now, the two wheels that come with this fridge are quite large in diameter. It's about 6¼ inches, so it should roll over grass or small gravel without any problems. They have a really durable plastic core with a softer rubber feel to them. There are two different ways to power up this fridge while you're on the go. You can use the AC to DC wall adapter. If you're in a hotel on a road trip, you can power it up overnight. And you can use the DC power cable to power it off of a power station, your vehicle socket, or another battery source. You just plug these both in right here and it'll work. There's also a 15 amp fuse, so if it doesn't power up, you know that you need to replace this fuse. Okay guys, it's one of my favorite parts of the video. We're gonna talk about power consumption with this fridge. Now, if anybody's ever used a 12-volt compressor fridge, you know it has a compressor inside that pulls electricity. Now, on standby mode, it pulls around 1 watt of power. That means the compressor is not running. When you have it on eco mode and the compressor is running, it pulls around 41 watts. And then when you have it set to max mode, that means the compressor runs at a higher speed, it pulls 71 watts. Now, depending upon the ambient temperature outside and the set point, and whether you've had the divider in or not, it will use different amounts of power because the compressor has to run more or less. So I like to do two different tests. I like to do a 70-degree ambient test and an 85-degree ambient test. And I did 4 different tests with the divider installed and with it removed. So let's go ahead and jump into those numbers. So the first 2 tests that I ran were both at 70 degrees, one with the divider and one without. So as a single zone set to 36 degrees inside, over the first 24 hours, it pulled 261 watt hours. If we divide that out, that's around 10.8 watts average. Now the second 24 hours, I actually put the divider in, had one side set to 36 degrees, one side set to 13 degrees, and over 24 hours, it pulled 432 watt hours, or around 18 watts average. Now moving on to the 85-degree ambient test, I actually take the fridge and put it in a closet with a heater and let it run for a long period of time. So I'm using a lot of power here with the heater running in the background, but I think it's worth it for the test. So during the first 85-degree ambient test without the divider, so it's a single area set to 36 degrees, the fridge pulled 577 watt hours, or an average of 24 watts. I then did a test for another 24 hours and put in the divider. I had one side set to 36 degrees and the other set to 13. And over 24 hours, it pulled 792 watt hours, or an average of 33 watts. Now, some people will say, hey, the compressor runs at 41 watts. Why aren't you getting 41 watts power usage? Well, you can see from our testing here that at 70 degrees ambient, the compressor doesn't run all the time. And at 85-degree ambient, it still doesn't run all the time, but it gets closer to that. Remember, 70 degrees, we saw around 10 to 18 watts, which means the compressor was at least running half the time, but not all the time. And then we stepped up to 85 degrees, we saw around 24 watts to 33 watts. So it's almost running all the time, but it's not quite getting there. Now, I think if you had this in a 100-degree environment, you would see it running all the time. So think about a hot car in the sun. The compressor is going to run all the time, which means it will at least pull 41 watts on eco mode. But after it runs for 30 minutes straight on eco mode, it actually bumps it up to max mode to hold that temperature. So you're going to see power usage above 41 watts, and that's why I estimated that 41 to 50 watts at 100 degrees ambient. Well, you may be asking yourself, why is it important to know how much power this fridge uses? Well, I get a lot of questions all the time about, well, how long is this fridge going to last on this power station? So let's do an example. I have the EcoFlow River Pro here. This has around 700 watt hours of capacity. And let's say we're running the fridge at 70 degrees in dual mode, which means it's going to pull around 20 watts on average. So we take the total capacity of the power station and divide it by 20 watts, and that will give us hours. So we're going to get around 35 hours runtime on this power station. So you can do that with any power station that you own. Just take it, divide the wattage, and you get the hours. Now, what's really cool is you can throw in a solar panel and add much more runtime, because the solar panel will charge up the power station throughout the day, and then through the night, it's usually a little bit cooler and the power station will kind of run down, but once the sun comes up, you'll charge it right back up. So pretty cool. Now you guys know I have a ton of reviews about power stations, solar panels, and fridges, and it all just comes together perfectly. Now when testing the compressor and fan for noise, right up next to it, I get around 57 decibels with my sound meter. And then moving about 3 feet away, I get 46 decibels. Now another thing I like to keep an eye on while doing my testing on these fridges is just to see how the temperature differs on the inside versus what you have it set on the display. Now for example, the inside of the fridge could be around 40 degrees, but the display is set to 35. Now that's pretty normal on most of these fridges. I've tested about 20 of them and they all have maybe 2 to 7 degrees difference. Some are really bad, but this one actually fared pretty well. It was around 5 degrees. Now it's also important to remember that the coldest air is at the bottom of the fridge, and near the lid is where it is the warmest. So you want to make sure that your foods that you don't want to spoil, put them at the very bottom, and then maybe your fruits and vegetables, drinks, you can put those at the top. Now it's really important to know the temperature inside your fridge, so I always recommend that you have one of these fridge thermometers. They're extremely affordable. I'll include it down in the video description. But just pick up a couple of these, set them inside so you can know the actual temperature inside your fridge so it doesn't spoil, and you can adjust the display accordingly. Okay, so the weight and dimensions of the fridge comes in at 43 pounds, which is pretty lightweight for an actual fridge this size. And remember, with the wheels and handle, it's really easy to move. The outside dimensions, I did measure this myself. It's 29 inches from this handle to this handle, or 22.5 inches tall. And then from the outside wheel to wheel, it's 23 inches. So hopefully that helps you to know if this is going to fit in your space or not. Okay, well there you guys have it. This is the Setpower RV60D Pro. That is a mouthful, but you know, it has a ton of different features. Remember, it comes in at $599. You can pick it up for $527 using my discount code. I'll have everything down in the video description, all the links, everything, so you can check it out. Now, what did you guys think of this fridge? Is there anything that you'd want to see in a fridge other than what this fridge has? Is this something that you'd be interested in, or are you looking for something else? Or maybe what fridge do you guys already have? I'd love to hear your guys' setup, especially, you know, solar panels, power stations, and fridges. Let me know what you guys are rocking down in the comments.